They don't slag you off and they don't promote it. And then you've got promoters who are like advocates. They're going out and telling their friends, oh, you really should go and play Angry Birds because it's fun or whatever. And then you've got the detractors who are kind of criticising and sort of denigrating the product. And what you're trying to do is, when you look at groups of customers, is to see how much each one of them are worth. And what we find in different models is that people who are promoting are obviously worth more to you than the ones who are not. Now, in the transmedia world, what you're really trying to do is give these people the tools to promote your product. Because it's one thing being an advocate. With social media and with transmedia, you can give them free content to actually share and kind of help do your work. And there's this sort of study that was done by the Harvard Business Review, where they broke down different types of customers into this quadrant. So here you've got people, what they looked at is people who spend money and people who refer you to other consumers. And affluents are people that keep buying from you, but they tend not to convert their friends, they tend not to advocate. And here we've got the advocates who don't spend very much themselves, but they're very good at promoting you. And what they found in their study is that the advocates are actually worth more to you than the affluents. I guess if you had no affluents, then the advocates would be worth nothing. But seen as like an ecosystem of consumers, that the advocates are kind of worth having. So this really wants to look at this thing about should all content be free. And what I've done here is I've taken the consumer funnel, going from awareness through to purchase and then to loyalty and advocacy. And here I've looked at sort of some of the things that someone might do online. So they see your media or your transmedia content, they form an opinion, and then if they love it, they might go through to buying it. And if they really love it, it's quite nice to give them the ability to share and remix it. Because stuff that, like the user-generated content, tends to have stronger credibility because they know that that content's come from somebody that's not been paid to produce it. And so it carries a lot more weight. But again, you need to enable that. And then, if you can really get into content creation, one of the problems is when you're trying to create a community around your story or around your content, is to have to keep generating content, because with no content, there's no social. And by enabling your audience to create their own content, so they come back and they feed the world. And this could be fan fiction, or it could be remixes, or it could be other stuff related to the part. Yeah. And so basically, looking at this area with a cost justification, here you're looking at awareness, and here you're back to word of mouth. You know, in terms of like why would I allow someone to remix my content? Then you would look at the referrals you're getting from that sharing of the content. I think when it works well, when you give away content that's free, you've got to be subtle about the way that you're promoting the revenue-earning content. Because if you do it clumsily with big kind of buy now kind of signals, then you're basically destroying the social value of the content. Because nobody wants to share an advert, or unless it's like a Super Bowl ad or something that's really funny. People tend not to want to share adverts because obviously everyone's avoiding it. And so by the more kind of the more kind of buy now and this is part of this, that and the other that you put into your free content, you're kind of destroying it. The best thing to do is let them know that this is part of a bigger world, that there's more content to consume, to give them to draw them towards you, and then once they're on, once they're in the proper place, once they're on your Microsoft or your own Facebook page, then have the calls to action to buy. So does free content generate sales? So again, it says Microsoft, but I think I've got this from Razorfish, which is the Microsoft agency. And basically what they're saying is that when people look at where sales come from, they too often attribute sales to the last click, the fact that someone clicked on something and they can measure that. They think, well, that advertising there is working. But what they found was that, 30 days out, some kind of rich media could have actually started, working on people's minds, enabling that recall and so on, and building that loyalty, so that when it came time to buy, they just search or they're ready to click. And so this is why you need to look at it as a kind of a bigger life cycle of content rather than just that last piece. So looking at sales, says low impression ads are which men are generating sales, few marketers record their full contribution because they know they can measure the clicks more easily than they can the other stuff, and so they think it's all going to click.
More the messenger.
Well, there's a lot of people now trying to put pixels and capture pixels from earlier pages in these kind of navigation paths and detail. And I mean, it's a battle as to whether you're really going to have a initial marketing sites that are recognized. And as you're saying, I mean, people don't do the real attribution looking at the pathways as much. But I mean, it's changing. More people are beginning to throw some more technology.
I mean, one of the problems has been as well trying to sort of drag people over to a microsite, and all the big brands have run into problems here because if everyone's hanging out on Facebook, that's where they expect to be on Facebook. So I think the only way to get people to go somewhere else is if there's a big enough draw. If there's a reason why you can't do it on Facebook, or, it's better to take your content to where people are hanging out.
Yeah.
Whenever you can, So when you look at sales, so there was a guy from EA who said to me, the cost of these web signals costs us a fortune. And what we don't know is if, it's people that were going to buy that game anyway, buying it. But I think that the way to look at it is actually the increased margin per fan. And this is why it comes down to this relationship, because when the second, or the third game in the series comes out, how many people go for the collector's edition who are new customers? I would imagine that most of the people that buy the collector's edition are fans of the first version. So that's where the loyalty is. And when I looked on Amazon, you've got something like the regular game maybe retailing at $60, and some of the collector's editions, another $20 on top of that. So there's one metric there where you can say, well, how many additional collector's editions am I selling over the sort of standard issue, and then try to look at who's buying that, how many new customers and how many established customers. I also think that the more that you develop the story world, the more that you give people and develop that loyalty, it opens up a market for new products, like gifting, role playing, and so on. And then, of course, the advocacy is just basically word of mouth, people telling new customers to come in. And I also think that by developing this story world, it is an investment. You're deepening this sort of story world, you're making it richer, and that makes it more sustainable. So that rather than your property just being a flash in the ocean, it becomes from cult into becoming more popular culture. So it grows over time. You've got greater longevity, and you're looking at the kind of increased lifetime value. And this is what comes back down to the relationship. So it's not just selling one person one product at one time, but it's really investing in them and seeing them sort of grow with your story over time. And that is pretty much the end. So I think that the great thing about transmedia storytelling is this increasing the audience engagement. By telling it over multiple platforms, you can deliver content to them at the right time and in the right format that they're ready to consume. So if they're travelling, they might consume something on their mobile, and then when they're back home, they might watch it on TV or on their console. And I think that the return on investment can be measured by looking at these 4 areas, and it really depends on the the product or the experience or what it is that you're seeking to achieve. And obviously having the right content, developing the right content to achieve those goals and then measuring against it. Thank you. So yes, I mean that's as much as I've prepared, but I mean I've got other. So is that interesting?
Yeah.
It always strikes me as how big it is, and how much you need an over mind to sit there and look at all the pieces as they're put together to make sure that it's going to line up with the canon, whatever that happens to be. John Reese says that this guy, he's a filmmaker, this indie filmmaker guy. He has this book called Think Outside the Box. His whole pitch was to create a new producer level position called PMD, Producer Marketing and Distribution. That this person was actually built into the writing, the creation, and the shooting of the film from the very start to actually make it a more viable film once it actually hits the public. It's kind of the same thing as having your head in the future while you build this super foundational pieces. It's cool.
And it needs to start from the beginning because I've had people approach me and basically they've already got a name and a website for everything, and the name doesn't even tell you anything about the, like the whole concept is wrong right from the beginning. Do you see what I mean? And then you'll be brought in to say, how can I find an audience for this, or how can I get this audience established?
You don't back yourself into a corner. Like, make sure that every time you do a step, there's an option for another step. So every step doesn't dead end, or every way you go doesn't have an obvious dead end.
Yeah. Well, it's thinking big. It's